Hey guys, it's Always Improving, and in today's video I'll be creating a self-portrait with watercolor paints. This project is for a Art 1 portfolio at my high school that I'm doing, but I'm really excited to get into it and I've never painted myself before. Sometimes I've sketched myself, but I've never really painted a full portrait of myself, so this is kind of exciting for me. The first step of this process, of course, is just to sketch out a few ideas. I think I have the image I want to paint, but I do want to sketch out a couple more just to make sure and kind of get some features of my face figured out. While not perfect, I think these three sketches of the reference picture really helped me kind of get some shapes of my face, and now I'm going to get out the supplies so I can begin the final product. I'm going to get out my Turner watercolors, some paper towels, brushes, and water. I almost forgot a crucial element. I need to get out the watercolor paper. Now that I have all the supplies I need, I'm going to use what I learned from my previous sketches and look back at the reference photo to create my final sketch on the paper I'm going to be painting on. This will just be so I can get a good idea of where I need to lay down my initial washes so I can work in details later. It won't be anything too in-depth and too detailed with the pencils. With this outline done, you kind of can't see it right now since it's I erased it a lot, so it's pretty light. But with it done now, I'm going to move on. I'm going to start on my skin tone and then probably add in some variation for other colors. But now I can start painting. When doing the base skin color for my face, I wanted to really just emphasize the highlights. I did that on the nose, on the chin, and a little bit under my left eye, and then I moved straight on into my hair, just a base coat similar to what I did for my skin, and I wanted to make that kind of just a bold color so I didn't have to saturate it later. I just wanted to get it a little bit more bold than usual. The next thing I did was kind of emphasize temperatures in my skin just a little bit. I didn't do it too much, and I'm trying to work on that, trying to get more reds, more yellows into the skin tones that I create, because really I feel like a lot of my skin tones are a little too pale. So that's what I did in this drawing of me, this painting of me. After emphasizing a little bit of the warmness on my cheeks and the more yellow areas of the top of my head and my chin, I moved on into the shadow. In the reference photo, I kind of have a shadow at least right beside my nose, and then on one half of my face. I'm at a 3/4 view, so you can see it kind of just under my eyes as well on one side. I emphasized that shadow and then moved on to the shadow in my hair, remembering that shadows will have a temperature as well. They're not just a darker version. I wanted to emphasize that, such as on the hand, I have warmer shadows there, but on my neck, I have more of a gray, more of a desaturated shadow because of just how the reference looked and how the light was reflecting on those areas. After getting those shadows in, I worked on putting the base coat for my lips and for my eyes, and I also added a little bit more shadow to my nose, emphasizing that dark area, trying to build up the color eventually in layers like watercolors meant to do. I did spend a bit of time sculpting the shape of my nose, which looks pretty large. It is kind of big for a nose, but with this image it kind of stuck out of the page and was kind of a focal point, I feel like, so I wanted to make sure it looked good. I then added details to the hand, kind of more of the crevices, like the wrinkles in my hand and their shadow, that warm tone shadow, and a little bit of my fingernails. I wanted to get that realism in there, so I did want to include those, but I didn't worry about them too much yet. Continuing to sculpt out areas of my face, I eventually got to work on the details of my facial features, including my eyebrows, my eyes, eyelashes, and a little bit of my lips. I did know that I wanted to go back in with gouache, which I will do later, so I didn't keep the highlights of my eyes, and I didn't worry too much about keeping the highlight on my lips either, because I knew I could go back in with that gouache later. Speaking of that gouache, the main reason I wanted to use it for this piece was for the jewelry I was wearing, because I didn't want to have to like keep that area reserved for the gold of the jewelry for the entire painting process. So I waited for a bit and just used the gouache to go over it. And that is just like a gold necklace and some earrings that I had on. I did end up using the gouache for several other things, including my fingernails, again, the highlights, and I did use it for my lips. I kind of regret doing it. I went over my lips many times. It was kind of the one thing I couldn't really get right, and I wish I would have just left it with watercolor because it kind of didn't match the rest of the image. But I did what I did, and I did spend a long time trying to get them to look good. I'm not completely happy with that area of the painting, but I did my best. Finally, with the gouache, I did go in onto my sweater and add that texture there. This did take me quite a while as well, because I was really trying to get a lot of variation in the colors and get the shadows right on my sweater, and just sort of emphasize that it was kind of shaggy. It wasn't super like just one direction. It was all kind of, it was a really soft sweater, but it was not like one fabric. It had a lot of different fibers that were coming off it, and I wanted to make sure that that detail was conveyed and that texture showed in the final product. After using the gouache, I did go back in with watercolor to finish up a few final touches of this painting. I added the rest of my hair to the image. I kind of just did the base coat, and I realized I didn't really do like the top of it or like some of the details that I needed to add, so I added those with watercolor. I also added a few like acne little bumps that I had, kind of made it more realistic, I think, as well. I fixed up a little bit of my lips and also some of my fingernails, and again added a lot more detail to my hair. The last thing I did with the watercolors was add a little background. It was really simple, just some nice like I don't even know what we call it. I guess just stripes coming out from me, like a radial kind of thing, just to give it some sort of interest in the background. And I did it in a blue, partially because blue is one of my favorite colors, partially just because I thought that it would look good in contrast with like kind of the warmer tones of my skin and of my hair. But yeah, that was it, really. That was the final thing I did. And those filing touches bring us to the end of this piece. I normally sign in watercolor, but today I'm going to sign in gouache. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, I hope you stay tuned for the next one. I'll see you then. Bye.